Hello there, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan Potato. The Jedi at first glance were the perfect organization. They were a group of spiritual warriors who were known for their invincibility in combat and objective mediation. Perfect archetypes of what it means to be a hero potato. But like anything, these perceptions begin to fall apart when you take a closer look. If you've only seen the main Star Wars movies, you might assume that the Jedi are the heroes. If you've read some of the comics and seen some of the TV shows, you might still think the Jedi are heroes. But once you meet enough Jedi and really see what they're capable of, you begin to realize that the Jedi Order is like any organization. There are good Jedi, and there are also terrible and incompetent Jedi. Today we're going to be talking about the terrible and incompetent ones. Coleman Trevor is sort of a legend among Star Wars fans. Born on his species' homeworld of Sembla, Coleman was a Verk, a large dinosaur potato-looking reptilian species. The Verk were a rather primitive species, but they had a natural affinity for negotiations and mediations. They also were extremely empathetic for a cold-blooded reptile species. It was for this reason why Coleman Trevor actually sat on the Jedi High Council, well, at least he did before the Battle of Geonosis. You see, Coleman Trevor took a part of the Petronaki Arena rescue attempt of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Padme Amidala, and Anakin Skywalker. He actually single-handedly tried to take down Count Dooku by himself. Unfortunately, Jango Fett was there to protect him, and he was able to quickly overwhelm Coleman Trevor's meager potato defenses with his rapid firing. Now, I'm not saying that blocking a blaster bolt is an easy thing to do, especially at point-blank range, but the Jedi did have precognition abilities, and you'd expect the Jedi Master to be able to handle something like that. Just look at how quickly Mace Windu proves my point. Coleman Trevor shows us that although he is a master in empathy, he lacks a mastery of lightsaber combat. It shows us a truth of what the Jedi Order really is. Not everyone can be Mace Windu or Anakin Skywalker. Sometimes you're just Coleman Trevor. Aside from the fact that she's died almost 4 times, not like Darth Sidious, but like permanently. Shakti was one of those Jedi who could have saved the entire Jedi Order and the Republic had she been a little better at her job. She was the Jedi Master in charge of training and developing the clone forces on Kamino. She worked hand in hand with the Kaminoan scientists and mercenary trainers to basically make sure that the clones had everything they needed to be good soldiers. Each group had their own purpose. The Kaminoans monitored the cloning process and health of the clones, whereas the mercenaries were in charge of training them and making them into good soldiers. Shakti was neither a geneticist or expert cloner or military trainer, kind of had to watch over the entire process and make sure nothing went astray. And so when a clone trooper went ballistic during the Battle of Ringo Vinda and shot his own Jedi General during the fighting, it was her responsibility to examine the clone and lead the investigation. Shakti ends up sharing the responsibility of examining the clone with Kaminoan Dr. Nala Se, who like most Kaminoans were devious and up to no good, and most likely sociopathic. Shakti lacked any initiative and seemed clueless during the entire investigation. Had she been paying closer attention, she might have noticed that Nala Se Potato was busy trying to hide important clues about the clone trooper's illness. When the Clone Trooper 5s carried out his own investigation and found a biochip inside the Clone Trooper's head, and later on a chip inside of his own head and almost every other clone's head, Shakti listened to his claim, but failed to make her own independent research. It wouldn't have taken her long to figure out that there was something wrong with all these chips inside the clone's head, and although there's only circumstantial evidence connecting the chip to the murders on Ringo Vinda, it was more than enough evidence for her to bring to the Jedi Order. When Nala Se claims that the chips were designed to inhibit aggressive behavior and that 5s needed to be terminated for taking out his own chip, Shakti finally steps in and decides to bring the clone directly to Chancellor Palpatine for investigation. Which again makes absolutely no sense. At best, 5s was unhinged and deranged from uncovering this conspiracy. He wasn't exactly the person you'd want to bring to the Chancellor. If there actually was a conspiracy, you'd probably want to do a bit of research and prepare a presentation that you can give to the Chancellor yourself. I mean, the Chancellor is a very busy person. Shakti had enough authority to take an independent look at 5's claims multiple times, but she fails to take action time and time again, dooming the Jedi Order, the Republic, and herself. She also voted to expel Ahsoka Tano from the Jedi Order before she was even proven guilty for the Jedi Temple bombing, and she was also more or less useless during the Battle of Kamino. Shakti certainly looks like a Jedi. She talks and walks and acts like a Jedi, but when things kind of go sideways, she's definitely not a very competent individual. Rules, laws, and regulations are designed to keep society safe. They're also designed to protect people who might not necessarily be able to handle themselves. The Jedi Code was designed to make sure that the younger and weaker Jedi would not fall to the temptations of the dark side. If you take a look at some of the older and more powerful Jedi like Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Mace Windu, they would oftentimes bend the rules whenever it was necessary. Mace Windu practices an extremely deadly form of lightsaber combat that taps into the dark side for power. This would normally be a huge problem for a normal Jedi, but Mace Windu is disciplined enough to control himself. Obi-Wan Kenobi, who is perhaps one of the most loyal and righteous Jedi in his generation, doesn't even hesitate for a second to disobey orders and carry out an illegal rescue operation for his one true love, Satine Kryze. When you're as strong and powerful as a Force user, you can make your own rules. The rules that are created by society to govern non-Force users are for you to interpret. I would consider Jedi Masters like Luminara Unduli pretty useless. On paper, Luminara Unduli might seem like a top Jedi within the Order. She does everything the Council tells her to do, she was brave and compassionate on the battlefield, and she always put a massive amount of effort into preparing herself for missions, and taught her apprentice Barriss Offee to do the same. But in a real battle, not against some stupid battle droid, but against a real-life opponent, Master Luminara's adherence to the rules made her very predictable. No matter how well practiced her form was, no matter how well she memorized the layout of the battlefield, it doesn't matter how well you've prepared for the battle if you can't surprise the enemy with your own creativity or tactics. You'll never be a truly great commander otherwise. Master Luminara and her apprentice Barriss Offee were in many ways the exact opposite of Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano, and on various missions, the two competing schools of Jedi training clash. Skywalker and Tano's improvisation on the battlefield made them extremely hard to predict and fight against. In all fairness, the two did experience more problems on the battlefield than Master Luminara and Barriss Offee, but when those problems did emerge, Skywalker and Tano were much better at handling themselves. In one duel between Master Luminara and Asajj Ventress Potato, the Sith assassin surprises the Jedi Master with some cheap street fighting tricks. Had Ahsoka Tano not come to her rescue, she most likely would have died. During the second battle of Geonosis, Ahsoka and Barriss Offee were supposed to infiltrate a Geonosian weapons factory by using an underground tunnel system. Barriss Offee had memorized the entire tunnel system, but when her source material turns out to be wrong, she has no idea where to go and what to do. Ahsoka Tano, once again, comes to the rescue. There's no problem with being prepared for a mission, but it's also really important to practice your creativity and ability to be flexible. When a Jedi becomes ancient and old, it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be incompetent. For most Force users, as their body continues to physically deteriorate, their power in the Force has usually grown so much that it's able to sustain them still. Just look at Count Dooku, Yoda, and Darth Sidious, and their crazy lightsaber techniques and flips. Then there's old masters like Dare Sinube, who in old age has collected a huge amount of knowledge, which allows him to be more efficient and effective during missions. But then you have guys like Horth Harth, who was a Jedi Master before the Great Sith Wars. He was kind of a legend within the Jedi Order when it was located still on Tatooine. We don't really know much about Master Horth Harth other than what Jedi Jolee Bindo tells Revan in KOTOR. Master Horth Harth was a kindly old Jedi who suffered from nearsightedness. His vision was so bad that he would oftentimes run into walls or mistaken Padawans for wild animals. It was said that Horth Harth was way too prideful to seek any treatment for his nearsightedness. There was even a legend that once Horth Harth gave a Padawan the wrong directions to the Enclave Council on Tatooine. Padawan realized that Horth Harth was wrong and confronts him about it, but instead of realizing and accepting his mistake, Horth Harth gets insulted and demands that the Padawan only use his route to the Enclave. That Padawan, of course, leaves the Jedi Order and never is seen again. Horth Harth was oftentimes used as the perfect example of what an incompetent Jedi was. If you're familiar with the Battle of Umbara, then you'll no doubt know the infamous story of the Jedi Master Pong Krell, the Basilisk male who betrayed his clones. Pong Krell was actually a terrific fighter, and from his results on the battlefield, an excellent commander. I mean, his troops did suffer extremely high casualties, but he usually got the job done. And the large, hulking Basilisk was also a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield. Having an extra set of hands really does help. He sort of has this General Grievous style of fighting going on. Now, Pong Krell's biggest downfall was actually his overconfidence. For the longest time, he had been receiving visions about the fall of the Jedi Order and the rise of some new power. Pong Krell wrongly believed that Count Dooku would be at the head of this new order and sought to gain his attention by secretly sabotaging his own forces. You see, Pong Krell wanted to be the Dark Lord's new apprentice. The problem was Pong Krell had never even communicated directly with Count Dooku. As far as we know, there's never any back and forth between the two or any promises that Count Dooku would take Pong Krell as an apprentice in the first place. So Pong Krell essentially betrayed his own clones by leading them into battle and exposing them to unnecessary dangers without any instruction or promises from Dooku. At the same time, his betrayal was so subtle that not even his own clones realized what he was doing until he tricked the 501st into attacking the 212th in a friendly fire incident. His entire plan depended on Count Dooku figuring out exactly what he was doing, which is kind of a long shot. This really doesn't make any sense, and when Pong Krell is finally confronted about his treason, he doesn't even have an escape plan ready, and he's quickly captured and killed. When we're born, we're all given a set amount of skill points, which we can distribute to various attributes. Some of us are strong and agile and have a lot of endurance. Some of us are wise and intelligent. It's clear to me that Pong Krell should have built a more balanced character. Here at Generation Tech, we are dedicated to the truth, and the truth is, the majority of the Jedi Order was far from special. You had guys like Anakin Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, Yoda, and Mace Windu who served as the face of the Order, but the rank and file were pretty subpar in my opinion. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. And as usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.